1. Theory or system of presentation. Someone who teaches musical composition is called a theory teacher, but if he has written a book on harmony, he is called a theorist. Note that Schoenberg viewed instruction in harmony, counterpoint, and form as constituting instruction in composition, or rather instruction preparatory to composition. Infra, page 13. Yet a carpenter will never think of setting himself up as a theory teacher, although of course he, too, has to teach his apprentices the handicraft. He may very well be called a master carpenter, but this is more a designation of his proficiency than a title. Under no circumstances does he consider himself anything like a scholar, although he, too, undoubtedly understands his craft. If there is a distinction, it can only be that the technique of musical composition is more theoretical than that of carpentry. This distinction is not easy to grasp, for if the carpenter knows how to join pieces of wood securely, this knowledge is based no less on fruitful observation and experience than is the knowledge of the music theorist who understands how to join chords effectively. And if the carpenter knows which types of wood are required by a particular job and selects accordingly, he is thus taking natural relationships and materials into account, just as does the music theorist when, appraising the possibilities of themes, he recognizes how long a piece may be. On the other hand, whenever the carpenter introduces flutings to enliven a smooth surface, he exhibits bad taste equal to that of most artists, and almost as little imagination. Even so, his imagination and taste equal that of all music theorists. If, therefore, the carpenter's teaching, just like that of the theory teacher, rests on observation, experience, reasoning, and taste, on knowledge of natural laws and of the requirements of the material, is there then really any essential distinction? Why then do we not also call a master carpenter a theorist, or a music theorist a master musician? Because there is a small distinction. The carpenter could never understand his craft in a merely theoretical way, whereas the usual music theorist has no practical skill at all. He is no master. And still another distinction. The true music theorist is embarrassed by the handicraft because it is not his, but that of others. Merely to hide his embarrassment without making a virtue of it does not satisfy him. The title master is beneath him. He could be taken for something else, and here we have a third distinction. The nobler profession must be designated by a correspondingly nobler title. For this reason, although even today the great artist is still addressed as master, music does not simply have instruction in its craft, its techniques, as does painting. Music has, rather, instruction in theory. And the result, the evolution of no other art, is so greatly encumbered by its teachers as is that of music. For no one guards his property more jealously than the one who knows that, strictly speaking, it does not belong to him. The harder it is to prove ownership, the greater the effort to do so. And the theorist, who is not usually an artist, or is a bad one, which means the same, therefore understandably takes pains to fortify his unnatural position. He knows that the pupil learns most of all through the examples shown him by the masters in their masterworks. And if it were possible to watch composing in the same way that one can watch painting, if composers could have ateliers as did painters, then it would be clear how superfluous the music theorist is and how he is just as harmful as the art academies. He senses all this and seeks to create a substitute by replacing the living example with theory, with the system. I do not wish to quarrel with honest efforts to discover tentative laws of art. These efforts are necessary. They are necessary, above all, for the aspiring human mind. Our noblest impulse, the impulse to know and understand, erkennen, makes it our duty to search. And even a false theory, if only it was found through genuine searching, is for that reason superior to the complacent certainty of those who reject it because they presume to know, wissen, to know, although they themselves have not searched. It is indeed our duty to reflect over and over again upon the mysterious origins of the powers of art, Kunstwerkungen, and again to begin at the beginning, again and again to examine anew for ourselves and attempt to organize anew for ourselves, regarding nothing as given but the phenomena. These we may more rightly regard as eternal than the laws we believe we have found. Since we do definitely know, wissen, the phenomena as facts, we might be more justified in giving the name science, Wissenschaft, to our direct knowledge, wissen, of the phenomena, rather than to those conjectures that are intended to explain them. Yet these conjectures, too, have their justification, as experiments, as results of efforts to think, as mental gymnastics, perhaps sometimes even as preliminary steps to truth. If art theory could be content with that, if it could be satisfied with the rewards afforded by honest searching, then one could not object to it. But it is more ambitious. It is not content to be merely the attempt to find laws. It professes to have found the eternal laws. It observes a number of phenomena, classifies them according to some common characteristics, and then derives laws from them. That is, of course, correct procedure, because unfortunately there is hardly any other way. But now begins the error, for it is falsely concluded that these laws, since apparently correct with regard to the phenomena previously observed, must then surely hold for all future phenomena as well. And, what is most disastrous of all, it is then the belief that a yardstick has been found by which to measure artistic worth, even that of future works. As often as the theorists have been disavowed by reality, whenever they declared something to be inartistic which did not with their rules agree, was nicht nach ihrer Regeln lauf, if ye by rules would measure what doth not with your rules agree, forgetting all your learning, seek ye first what its rules may be. Hans Sachs in Richard Wagner, Die Meistersinger, Act 1, Scene 3, translation Frederick Jameson. They still cannot forsake their madness. Vam wan nicht lassen. For what would they be if they did not at least have a lease on beauty, since art itself does not belong to them? What would they be if it were to become clear to everyone, for all time, what is being shown here once again? What would they be, since in reality art propagates itself through works of art, and not through aesthetic laws? Would there really be any distinction left in their favor between themselves and a master carpenter? Someone could declare that I am going too far, that nowadays, as everybody knows, aesthetics does not prescribe laws of beauty, but merely attempts to infer their existence from the effects of art. Kunstwerkungen. Quite correct. Almost everybody does know that nowadays. Yet hardly anyone takes it into consideration. And that is just the point. Let me illustrate. In this book, I believe I have succeeded in refuting some old prejudices of musical aesthetics. That these prejudices have remained with us right up to the present would in itself be proof enough of my contention. But when I say what it is that I do not consider a necessity of art, when I say tonality is no natural law of music, eternally valid, then it is plain for everyone to see how the theorists spring up in indignation to cast their veto against my integrity. Who today would want to admit that my statement about tonality is true, even if I proved it still more incisively than I shall do here?